Okay, great, thank you. Declarations of interest.
Yes, I have some from officers for the pay policy statement, which is item 8.5 on your agenda at page 161 in relation to the vehicle lease scheme for critical officers. So I've got declarations from the Deputy Chief Fire Officer, ACFO Matt Jones and ACFO Martin Worldwide.
Thank you. Right. Moving on then, quick chairperson's announcements. So we have some new faces. Louise, background, welcome to the organisation. New contract.
That's right, yes, communications engagement manager.
Great, good to have you here. We've got some returning faces. Glad to see you again. Serena, can't believe that's sort of, it's timeless, isn't it? It's a year that you're away. And then we have some leaving faces. Dominic, this is your last meeting here at the Board of Commissioners. Just want to put on record on behalf of the Commissioners, on behalf of the organisation, our thanks for all the work that you've done. I think you came not long after we were here at a very difficult time and put in place a whole series of arrangements and programmes that the service needed going forward. And I'm sure that will serve as a foundation for people to come after you to help set the service to the next stage. So thank you very much for your contribution, and it's very grateful indeed, and all the best for your future. Okay, we have a pre-election period, not new, it's not this term further anymore, not just for a pre-election period. The notice of election at 0900 hours on the 25th of March. We are now within that until polls close on the 7th. It does say on my notes, the 7th of Mary. I'll take that as May. We have issued pre-election guidance for the organisation. Secondly, we are aware of two large industrial fires that took place, and we'd like to thank the operation crews and fire control for bringing those under control. And not only under control, putting them out. That's the right phrase. We'll all be aware, as we've driven in this morning, that the service is holding a family event here at the headquarters to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the formation of South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. We're pleased that a special Beacon Award ceremony is being held as part of the 30th anniversary celebrations, and we are pleased with the energy that is being put into these awards, as well as the new Spotlight Awards that are being held out at the stations, as well, and also the new retirement ceremonies. Together, these help satisfy an important recommendation made by Fenella Morris. We would like to pass on a special thanks to State and Private Becky News, who has illustrated these reward and recognition. We extend our congratulations to Watch Manager Richard Matthews, Harris Howells and Firefighter James Miller, who was shortlisted for the NFCC National Apprenticeship. Firefighter Miller won the Apprentice of the Year Award, and Watch Manager Matthews won the Outstanding Apprentice Support Award. It's really pleasing to see that the South Wales Fire and Rescue Service is now being recognised at the national level for excellence. As the emergency officer has mentioned, we will, when we get to the DDAT note, we will take the first part from you, and then we'll take the second part, which are pink papers in closed session. In terms of matters raised from the subcommittees, we would like officers to be aware that we're looking at new sickness levels in 2 sets of meetings to establish furthermore efforts to reduce the levels of sickness and health within the organisation. These meetings, in terms of the task force, are being chaired by the Chief and Deputy Chief Officer, and will be meeting monthly. So we'll look forward to see progress arising from that. Moving on then to the next item, receive the minutes. So I'll take accuracy first and then capitalising. So is there anything in terms of accuracy on page 1 of the minutes, starting page 5 of the bundle? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, and we've got minutes of the local pension board, which starts at page 13 of your bundle. Anything on that? Page 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. We also have minutes of the Strategic Change, Transformation and Culture Committee on 20th November, page 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5, 26, 27. Other set of minutes, people committee, page 29, on page 30, 21, 32. That's correct. And we have the minutes of Finance and Audit Committee, on 12 December, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Always tend to pick the rate at the end of these. To give due diligence. 41 and 42. Then go to founding actions from the matters arising from the previous meetings. We've got the first one. So we've got the two updates, but it says the current status is that it says a date to be determined when this should be added to a future agenda. The things we do like to have is anything on action with dates.
My version has the date, it will be added to the 22nd of May 26 Extraordinary Board of Commissioners,
Oh, mine just says a date to be determined.
which page.
Oh, right, sorry, right down the bottom. Okay, great. Thanks.
But yes, it is, we had considered that, it's now called a health, safety and wellbeing plan rather than strategy. We're trying to get out the habit of calling everything a strategy. It was considered by the decision-making board yesterday, where it was approved by everybody at the decision-making board, subject to a couple of minor tweaks, and it will be coming to you for approval on the 22nd of March.
And move on the sickness absence, we've already mentioned what the action is on that in the announcements. And the zero consultation plan is going to come off. It's going to come to the extraordinary board of commissioners.
I think the consultation plan will be shared with you and draft offline, but then we'll come to you for formal approval. I think they want to get your input early and then it will come to you on the 22nd of March.
Right, okay, then moving on to the.
Chair, just I don't no problem with me. I just wanted to thank the work of Alison, Matt, and others around the pension board. I know it's a really tricky area of business. I know there's still a lot of work to do, but clear progress has definitely been made. And I know we've talked about governance going forward. I just want to say my thanks because I know it's an enviable task.
Thank you.
Or an unenviable one, maybe.
Right, okay, thank you. Moving on then to item 7, the agenda chief's update. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to keep this reasonably short, so the report itself is pretty short, noting that this is a sheaf of papers that we've got, and we've got to get through things. But also, I gave an update quite recently. So the things I've that I focused on in the meeting are operations. First of all, you've already mentioned the two operations. I just want to highlight something that really pleased me about us becoming a growing and learning organisation. So ACFO Ward White attended one of the incidents and he was really quite impressed. He came from West Midlands, so he's come from outside and he was really quite impressed with the way the firefighters were attacking that fire, and that we can directly map that back to the water mapping rig that we procured and set up. Okay, so I was dead pleased with that. The 30th anniversary, you've already mentioned some of the items. I'm outside in the car park. You can see that we've got two fire appliances. What is really impressive is one of those was the first pump to attend the Aberfan tragedy. So that's a really totemic fire engine that we procured, and thanks very much to Lisa Schroll's husband for finding that and then also getting it over its country in Norfolk. The other one served in World War II. That sort of underlines what this service was doing. That was up in Caerphilly, protecting the critical national infrastructure of our nation in time of great stress. And of course, that underpins what we're thinking about today and what we're doing today in the broader sector of fire and rescue services. So really important. And those two vehicles will be leading the drive-through that we've got planned to go past the Honours and Awards ceremony down at the School of Drama and Music, where we're going to be recognising all of our people, but it will be leading another series of modern fire appliances as through the minicard, which I think will be lovely. Fatigue is my next point. So we now have a fatigue management framework in this service, which we did not have before. You'll remember when I came to speak to commissioners, I was very concerned about that. It left us open to legal challenge, and also we were not protecting our people in the way that we should do, providing a safe system of work. That is now in place. I've highlighted here that we're going to be pressure testing this over the next few weeks, and we'll come back to you with a report. I can't give you a date on that at the moment, so I'm not quite too sure how much pressure testing we need to do. But suffice to say, we've introduced a framework. We issued operational guidance, and then we've issued follow-on guidance that allowed people to really understand what that guidance means. More to come on that. And I've also put something in there about internal governance. We've had Academy Well really, really pleased with the stability of the executive leadership team now, but also how the executive leadership team and heads of services are coming on with this Academy Wells training. It's elevated the way people are thinking, the way people are engaging, and cross work going on between teams. And I think it's crucial to us going forward. So I'm really pleased with how that's operating. And to give you an example, yesterday we had a strategy meeting, and out of that strategy meeting came some really good things that I'll refer to later on in this meeting.
Okay.
I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments, observations, questions for the chief? Okay, thank you. Moving on then to section item 8 of the agenda, reports and decisions. So the first one is the year 1 update on the strategic improvement plan.
Thank you, Chair. That's my agenda. Thank you. So this paper has been submitted to seek the approval for the commissioners for the Service Strategic Improvement Plan. So it's essentially the first update of the 15-year plan that was presented last year. So, like I mentioned, the service has to publish an annual update on its plan, where it outlines its annual improvement and well-being objectives. And it has to do this within longer term themes. So it's obviously what are we doing this year in line with our longer term priorities. And like I said, the plan was rewritten last year to be the 2025 to 2040 look. And every year we look at what we're doing in line with what we already agreed. Commissioners will be aware that there was a 12-week consultation that was launched on October the 31st as part of phase 2 of the planning cycle. And what's happened since then is obviously the results of that, while it was been fed to yourselves in a meeting, they've obviously then been fed into leadership development meetings where we've talked to departmental leads and had horizon scanning conversations, and then looked at departmental plans to devise improvement and well-being objectives and try to make sure that what are they doing next year to meet that longer term plan is put in place. This year, there has been a greater emphasis on the Wellbeing Future Generations Act, so based on feedback we got from Nordic Wales. So those planning meetings have challenged our leaders to have a bit more of an emphasis on aligning what we're doing for the greater good of Wales and our communities in general. And again, this year as well, we've made a lot more progress in aligning our departmental plans to ensure that what the departments are actually focused on. The high level versions of that are present in this plan. So as one of the some of the observations in HMI CFRS was around departmental delivery plans. So you've previously seen prevention and detection response plans. There's that plan coming to you today. There is obviously a comm strategy as well. So this year there's a greater emphasis of what are you doing next year to deliver on these plans. So you'll notice much more of we've strengthened that golden thread this year, and I'm hoping to again deliver on those things to be able to show where we're going in the longer term. So it's seeking Commissioner's approval today. The statutory publication date for the plan is the 31st of March. The plan you'll see in your packs is a draft version. Again, it's currently going through design. It's currently being translated, and there are easy read versions in both languages being designed as well. So I have a designed copy of that to show you today after the meeting. But it's just to seek approval for publishing on the 31st of March. I'll take any questions at that point.
So,
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Comments, observations, Carl?
So mine, first of all, you can see the iteration, but that's really good. And I think that the link between the force plan or the service plan and department plans, I think that feels right going forward. Two queries really. One query, one statement. query is 15 years. I struggle to see where we're going to be in 5 years. 15 is a long way out. And I raise that as a question of fine with the plan, but is it just too aspirational when we're trying to look for the future? The other query linked to CRMP, and Adam, I know you and I have spoken around it. Consultation numbers are still very low, isn't it? Really, when we look at the amount of community that we cover, and for this, that's not ideal. For the CRMP, that feels fairly critical when we actually look about how we do that consultation more broadly. So I'm not sure there's an answer for the second one today, but I think there's a point that we're going to have to do something much more ambitious for the consultation for the CRMP. But I do wonder, and I'm not sure if it's in the chief of you, Wayne, around is 15 years for the next plan, not this one, too long?
I mean, I think on both parts, I think the second part in terms of consultation, I think is probably easier to answer at this point. I think it's because what we've been tasked to do this year, obviously, is to produce a CRMP, to work it in the current annual reporting cycle that we do have. I know in terms of the consultation numbers that we've had, we've certainly started a piece of work in a working group around some stakeholder analysis. To almost use links that we already have for in the service. And I think we're looking at obviously a risk-based approach. So the places we need to take our more potentially contentious and potentially more ambitious plans, to put more resources there, because, as you said, it covers a large geographical area and a lot of people. But I think that piece of work, certainly with the head of communications, and I feel it's working in a group to work out, to try and take advantage of linkages we have now and networks and things like that. We probably haven't taken advantage of a lot of the contacts and people we could consult. We already consult on for other means. And I think in terms of the CRMP as well, I think what we'll find with the strategic improvement plan, or this iteration of a plan, the CRMP obviously gives a lot of data-driven analysis of what the risk is in our communities and what our potentially big plans are. And I think that actually can fit that in quite seamlessly with the next iteration of this plan, because the community risk management plan will actually provide a much more data-driven idea of what is actually needed in your area and what our current plans are. And then it seems to fit quite nicely into this iteration of next year's plan to say, based on this analysis, in addition to the horizon scan and your other consultation needs, it will actually be able to identify what you're doing, but more importantly, have more evidence as to the why. I think that part is easier. In terms of the long-term nature of the plan, I think, Chief, you might have a
yeah, if I may, Commissioner. So the Wayne's plan is the lead plan that sits underneath the strategy. Mm-hmm. The strategy is your North Star. So that's your vision. That's what you're trying to achieve. When I arrived in this service, I noticed that it wasn't that sort of long-term strategic vision. And I think probably one of the things that Wayne has experienced is he goes out to people, discusses with different teams, and they will report back and say, I'm doing this, this is my plan, and feeds it into Wayne. So it didn't have that kind of that star guidance. So and we were having a strategy discussion yesterday, and we're about to set up a strategy workshop that aligns the SIP much more closely with the with this sort of North Star, so that Wayne's team gets to go out there and goes, what are you doing to achieve that vision, rather than what are you doing? Yeah. That plan will now sit there, and that underneath that lead plan will be lots of other things. So, for example, the communications delivery plan, the DDAP delivery plan. So you've got your vision, you've got your strategic objectives that you want to deliver, you've got the ways of delivering that. Wayne is the key lead on that, and then these other plans that sit there. Beneath that, then you've got your means, and that's again where Wayne's team hasn't in the past been able to turn around and say, right, when are you delivering that? By what time? What resource have you got? That's the key to this sort of this ends, ways and means strategy. So Wayne sits in the middle of that, and then it's forcing all of these other bits of the organisation to deliver on time, and then that's all mapped and checked. Right now, so Adam's going to be leading a workshop on that to make sure that all aligns. So 15 years, quite happy for it to be there. I'll give you an example, for example. So what we need to be doing to go a long way out into the future is to horizon scan, which the organisation hasn't really been doing to a great degree, nor the sector, to be fair. And what we have there is, for example, I've just triggered a piece of work. What does the fire station of 2040 look like? Now, that's really important because you've got long-term plans for infrastructure. So you need to be thinking, well, what do they look like? So Martin's going to go and work on that working with everybody across the organisation, because it's not just property and infrastructure. It's also, well, what are the things that you need for the welfare of your firefighters on that station? What are the things that you need? And so there are a whole bunch of things that you need to start feeding in. So that's a piece of conceptual work which the organisation sector hasn't been doing. Been talking about that in the NFCC this week as well, that kind of conceptual development work.
Commissioner,
Kirsty, and then Lady Wilcox. So Kirsty.
Yeah, thank you so much for the takeaway. I guess for me, it's how do we ensure delivery against the objectives and the activities in the plan with a view to what the new governance arrangements would look like. So whilst I'm just seeking assurance, and I'm sure it's already been done, that the activities are being mapped against who is responsible for delivering them within the organisation, and with one eye on the new governance arrangements, how that will be, how assurance will be given to the new fire authority against delivery. So I guess that's what I'm looking for, is assurance that that work is underway and will be able to be stepped up once the new arrangements are in place. I guess it's a question for Amanda more than one.
I mean, we have current arrangements in place. I know a lot of the work that Dominic and his team have been doing is tracking progress against the lines in the strategy. So I know that that monitoring is happening currently. What it's going to look like in terms of who it's reported to in future under the new structure, I can't tell you today, but it's absolutely on my radar. It's something we need to regularly report on. But in terms of the granular detail about the deadlines of things and who's being held to account, that's something I need to make sure that we dig into in a bit more detail, because we've got the performance metrics that we're reporting, but I need to just check that they map directly across. So.
I think, Commissioner, there is assurance in place at the moment, particularly the performance assurance framework is mapped to those 8 strategic themes. But I do think, as Pat said, there's work to do, particularly with the IT solutions we're looking at to improve that, and the reinception of the PMO. So that's going to look as well to really focus on the key priorities, particularly short and medium term as opposed to long term. That work's ongoing as well. As the Chief said, there's a strategy piece of work to streamline all that now. So that is in place, but we think it will be a much better outcome after this work takes place.
My concern is there's lots of plans, lots of strategies, lots of responses to the documents, and that's really stressful for people, isn't it? Because actually, which of these am I being held to account to? Which are the priorities? And that's almost setting people up to fail. So making sure there is alignment to this plan that everybody else that is being asked, I think, is really important. But it sounds like you're on it.
That is the piece of work.
If I may add to that, so we're doing, so we're about to do the top level designs of the organisation as part of the operating model. That is crucial to this, because what that allows you to do is to figure out exactly where does the PMO sit, where does Wayne's team sit, and the piece of work that we triggered yesterday as part of this strategy is exactly that. It's to deliver. We've got 62 lines in that strategy. We've introduced some program management software. That is just that's an interim bit of program management software. So part of the development of the operating model of the organisation is aligned with the DDAP systems that we're going to introduce, and we'll be migrating probably to another program management software. Monday was brought in as an interim measure to allow us to track things, monitor things. We're going to have a better system that sits there to align all those 62 lines of effort. Probably one of my criticisms of the SIP as it stood is that Wayne didn't have all the levers necessary to really hold people to account throughout that whole time frame, and particularly looking way out into the future.
So if I may follow up. So then the second question is, what analysis has been done on the capacity of the organisation to deliver the plan? Because it's all very well writing the plan, but then there's the issue of deliverability at that time. So we've set ourselves some very high expectations, but what level of confidence do we have as an organisation that the things contained in the plan are actually deliverable within the capacity that the organisation has? So what's our level of confidence delivery, do we think, at this stage? Or do we have to work for this further work to be done?
So that was the whole point of creating a strategy, this organisation has a problem with people pushing things out into the next year. So we've introduced a new piece of governance, which is the decision-making board. One of the features of that decision-making board is people come in and they say, "Can I do 50,000? Can I have 4 people?" And I sit there and say, "Well, did you put it into the budget? No. Well, then you can't have it. Or you can go and find some other offset." The whole point of this is to deliver a cultural change where people start pushing things out to year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 20. And then you start achieving it. You start being able to think about things in a much more progressive way. So we had a discussion about uniforms, for example, was unachievable in year 1. Might be achievable if you do it over a 10-year period, for example. And that's a psychological change in the organisation, because everything's sort of close in year 1, year 2, really.
Thank you.
I think Lady Wilson's been waiting an awfully long
Yeah, I
time.
think just before that. Dominic, did you want to come in on back of this?
Yes, please, Vig. Good morning, everyone, and apologies for not being in person. My points actually follow on from Kirsty's on governance, but let's look at the wider governance picture. I raised this at the Finance and Audit Committee last week, so Wayne has heard it, but for general consumption, we will be experiencing probably a seismic change in the governance of Wales, if the polls are anything to go by. And this plan talks about the Future Generations Act of 2015 and the social partnership and so on and so forth. And a lot is predicated on that, and rightly so, because we can only work on the governance and the arrangements and the policies and the laws that we have as we stand. But I just want to inject a cautionary note and an awareness for people that all those things might change. They might change overnight, and it could be as stark as that. So please be aware that after May, with those changes that'll happen in Cardiff Bay, that you may have to change this as well, because those things may no longer stand, or they may not be part of what you're required to do. So, build that awareness into your work, please. Thank you.
Dominic, you're going to come in on part of the...
Yeah, so I think, to be fair, the Chief and Adam have covered up many of the points that I was going to talk through that process. I think we are nearly there with putting a lot of this stuff together. The alignment piece is going to hopefully be the last piece of that, because it will allow you to have monitored progress through the performance management framework, the industry strategy, certain improvement plan, driving the challenge programs. We have maintained the bi-weekly commissioners' evidence review, so that'll get handed over with Adam. So final things such as your recommendations and HMI pieces of work will still have the commissioner oversight director for evidence, and talks about improvement in the software, no data that way. SharePoint.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just building on the question around capacity, I think another side of that is just wider resource. So there's a piece of work to map the strategic improvement plan to the medium-term financial plan and how that all flows in together. So that'll be coming to Commission has all the new fire authority later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, I'm not looking at a couple of people in the organisation. Sometimes what you have, you get people with the level of expertise who are doing things, and they get promoted and they moved on, and we end up sometimes creating a capacity issue of our own making. And I guess the thing is, this is going to be a busy year with fire cover review, the introduction, CRMP. There's an awful lot to go at, a lot of skills and knowledge required, and it's about having the bandwidth within the organisation to be able to meet the challenges which it's setting itself. This is going to be whoever's in this saddle will find out when that comes to there. The point I wanted to make was really back on the consultation. I was quite taken that we had quite an interesting response when we did the was it the supermarket, the shopping centre, and because if we look at the number of responses we've had, they're quite high on staff, internal staff responding to our own plan. If we want to get community engagement, we've got to go to the places where the community are, whether that be some social media stuff, but also you will find people in shopping centres, and we picked 10 shopping centres on a number of different days. We will pick across thousands of people, which would be quite a jump on the level of responses that we've got now. So I guess looking at Louise about how we're going to maximise that with some new ideas and opportunities. Because if there are challenges within the fire cover review and CRMP, people will want to have had a chance to make a comment. This isn't sort of an ordinary couple plan for a few years where it's not too exciting. This is going to be something that the public will have wanted to have the opportunity to express a view. And that's one of them. Okay, so right, thanks. Moving forward then to the strategic performance indicator project. This is a paper that we've really been wanting this for a long time now. I'm glad that this is here. So we've thought on a stories. Cheers.
Suggestions.
Over to her.
Yeah.
Wayne, it's your response.
It's like conferring on you.
Wayne, your name's on the bottom of it, it helps.
Yeah, no,
I got confused then.
no, sorry.
We'll tag team with it.
Yeah, this is a joint effort. I think the reason of collaboration there. So this is the projection setting for the Welsh Government statutory indicators. So we have the 7 statutory indicators that Welsh Government wants to report on annually. Every year we put a projection in place that we look at. It's a two-pronged approach. So the first one is obviously that mathematical element of using trend analysis. So you'll see in Appendix 2 the projection setting methodology, and it uses a weighted look at 5 years of previous information. It looks at obviously the year that we're in now, and it projects the end total of this year, and then it gives then a mathematical projection. The second part of that then is the statistics and risk team will meet with the director of service delivery and try to put some operational context in line with that. So again, it's understanding that the mathematical side is only part of the puzzle, in line then with the director's priorities and what they're going to do. Obviously, they're planning work, they're delivering on their own delivery plans. Do they believe that the projection is either overly ambitious or not ambitious enough? And what they'll do then is phase 2 will be refining that projection in line with actual activities or horizon scannings. Are there things that we think will drive the number up that's out of our control, or do we believe it will be more aspirational and drive that number down? So what you'll see in the paper then is the 7 projections themselves, and we'll go through them. There's not much to really add to that, Commissioners. It was almost what we'll be bringing in next year would be to measure those 7 against the projections in place. We are projecting that most of them are higher than the year they are, the way we are now. Yeah. And the 7th one, you'll notice the percentage of dwelling fires containing the room of origin. That projection is actually set by Welsh Government itself. So I think today to get the approval from yourselves for you to seek any further assurances from both myself and the Director of Service Delivery around where these have come from.
Okay. So I guess the thing with these are that the other performance indicators that are set up for the organisation will sit under these. I mean, these are quite, we've had these for a number of years, but it's what we do about the indicators below them that's makes a full of difference.
Yeah, the indicators below, I think, again, you mentioned they are more granular. So I think a lot more work needs to be done in terms of working out similar projections for them in terms of, like I said, because they are more granular. They'll be much more heavily influenced by the work we're undertaking. So that piece of work hasn't occurred yet. Right. These are the statutory high level indicators.
Is it the same methodology you use? We have different methodologies, one for the statutory indicators and one for our own indicators.
I think on an indicator to indicator basis, we probably need to work out the best way to do that, depending on whether, again, they're high numbers, lower numbers, or what we can and can't do to look at that. It might be further benchmarking required, or a bit more of a rationale of what drives the number in the first place. So that'll be a piece of work for myself and the stats team to go in and work out how we can and can't do that. I know the CRMP will have a lot of wider analysis that we may choose to use to devise suitable projections. But this paper is just the high level ones, which is a statutory requirement.
Just to complement what Wayne's saying, when we look at those areas, we know there's been some increases, and some of those increases are quite straightforward for us to discuss around deliberate fire setting. When we've seen the weather conditions of last year compared to previous years, we can see that, but that doesn't stop our prevention activities occurring. There is obviously a greater focus now on the prevention and protection strategies that are out there, and they're all aligned. And obviously they will align with our CRMP as well. And we're starting to delve down deeper to understand things a lot more. And some of those areas where we're seeing this now is
the key areas of our fatal fires is doing greater work with our partners. So we have a dedicated role within the prevention directorate, which is a partnership officer. And I have a meeting with that individual next week around what work we doing around this, what partners are we linking in with to identify those that are most at risk within our communities. But just to give you some reassurance as well, that this week we've run 2 targeted events within the communities where there were the fatalities we've seen in the previous 12 months. So we've done a lot, we've done a hard push in amongst there this week with those individuals. And again, then we are using better information and data that we've got more effectively, so such as the directive list. So rather than just focusing on referrals, we are utilising the directive list this year. But the key point for us is a greater scrutiny around the data we have, and that will be scrutinised with the depth as well in the performance management, but also at the levels below that is we are now pushing that the key performance indicators at station level, and they will be challenged at our service delivery board as well across there then. And again then is the little fires, as we said, with special service calls, we were able to understand that there's been a significant increase in gaining entry, and this is linked to the Right Care, Right Person scheme, which has gone and which has been seen by a lot of fire and rescue services in the UK. Thankfully, we've got a working group which is established now, a trial, which will be underway for 6 months in Wales, which will look at reducing that figure, working with WAST and the police forces within Wales to how we can address still maintaining gaining entry to support WAST, but how we can secure that scene at no cost to the fire service, but release our assets. So reducing that impact upon us then.
Thank you. Thanks, colleagues. Kirsty?
I still, after a couple of years, can't quite get my head around this document. Because what I don't understand is are these statistical projections about the help us plan? So this is what we potentially could expect to see if we don't do anything, or are they targets for this organisation? And I never quite understand what the purpose of this document is. Because this document is going to go into the public domain, the projections are going to go into the public domain, and if I was a member of the public, I would be concerned about what this document says. Because this document says that we could expect attendance at more road traffic accidents, we can expect more people to die or be harmed in a fire. We could expect us to be spending more time answering unwanted fire signals and false alarms, etc., etc., etc. And our ability to contain fires within the root origin is going to stay the same. So I'm never quite sure what this document is about, and given that it goes into the public domain, I think we need to be really clear about what it is about. But I also don't, so I'd be grateful if we could just bottom out, is it just a prediction? Or about what will happen if we don't do anything, or is this the targets that we are setting ourselves for this year? What I also don't understand, Wayne, is on each of the sheets, it says projected, and then it's got figure, and then it's got original projection. So I'm not quite sure what the 2 different boxes are supposed to be for, because I think in most cases, in not every case, the figure remains exactly the same. So why have we got a box with 2 different headings that says exactly the same figure? I just simply don't understand. My bad. Somebody could explain it to me, that would be great. I'm really worried about the unwanted, about the false alarms. We have significantly changed practice and policy in this place. We should be seeing something, unless I'm reading the stats wrong. I don't understand why they say why they do. And given the investment of time, effort, and energy into firefighting tactics as a result of the fire advisory work, why we're seeing some of the stats that we are here. So I'm just a bit kind of, what can I say? If it's just a statistical projection to help us plan, that's one thing. If this is what we're saying we're going to deliver, then I'm a bit underwhelmed.
In relation to the tactics, Commissioner, we probably need to see that implemented 12-month period to start to physically see that result within our findings. And the other thing that would support that now is the implementation of the more detailed operational assurance. So we should be able to bring you back then that confidence that is actually occurring in these events. And sometimes, while the tactics are effective and efficient, the incident is already spread beyond the room before we actually arrive there. So that's beyond our area then. And Wayne obviously correct me if I'm wrong here, obviously with the total false alarms as well, that is including obviously accidental running fires, so where someone's ringing up and we're getting, it's not an actual AFA in amongst that. Yes, I can answer a few of the questions. So the projected was the original projection, and probably the sign off, and this is probably a meeting that may well happen. One of them, the original projection is around the numerical statistical side of it, and then usually then that projection is finessed in meetings with yourself, which that meeting is actually it's due next week. That meeting yes, that meeting has been rescheduled. So that final document there'll be the original projection will be the statistical direction of travel, and then if that number can be finessed in any way, it can be put in separately. At the moment, the meeting hasn't happened, so they've both been put in the same.
So I'm kind of, so that's curious, isn't it? So if so this document is going to change. So I think in going forward, it'd be really useful if those meetings are held before the document is presented to the whatever governance arrangement there is. It seems a little point in bringing this forward today if there is a very important meeting that is going to finesse the data that hasn't been completed. I think obviously the findings hasn't quite worked out this time, and I think it'd be really helpful going forward if those timings were sorted so that the document that is being presented is the document.
That's a full data. No, so that doesn't have the complete data.
No,
So again, yeah.
So this has already been published as it is, because these are public papers, aren't they?
yeah.
There we are. Jim.
I'd just like to point out that we are doing the CRMP at the moment as well. So that is looking at the risks in the whole community. And I think that we're at a juncture of some really different work that is taking place in this organisation. So combine that with the fire cover review, we've got some very significant change coming on, and part of that CRMP is to do statistical analysis.
I think that in one of the recommendation two is that Commissioners approve delegation to Assistant Chief Fire Officer Service Delivery to review Q4 data and plan reduction strategies and refine projections as necessary. I'd go as far as saying I completely agree with you, putting the document here and then asking for delegation to change the document. It may be actually confusing the issue. So yeah, that was an insight into what will and will be done in the future. But I think we can, for assurance, can give you that refined document and maybe make sure that that's published more formally in a separate form.
Okay, great. We've got Lady Wilcox and Carl.
Thank you. You know, as ever, Kirsty's analysis is spot on, and she gets to the heart of the matter. My concern about this is that as a public document and people looking at the issues raised in this public document, that there should be a very clear line of sight in terms of comms and in terms of answers to this. So if you are, you know, if a media company picks this up in terms of all false alarms or death by fire or road traffic accidents, any of those things, you know, you really need to be belt and braces on what your answers are, because you know, there are some very worrying statistics here and things that can set the hairs running. So please be aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
It's a query for Amanda personally, which is could we bring back the amended to the extraordinary meeting in May? Because that would be the end of the year, it's next year, so we can slow down possibly. So
Yeah,
that means we've been
our-
twice, but I think I think again. I think it still comes back to the purpose that Kirsty was trying to raise, is what's the purpose of the document? Is it a reporting on the performance we have achieved and are likely to achieve? Or is it the aspiration we've got? And I'm not sure, because of partly how this document is used by government, I'm not sure we're clear on the purpose of this is. The performance framework out of it, we've kind of worked with Wayne, but I'm really clear.
Yes.
This,
Great.
I'm still not clear what it's there for. Is it just reporting? Is it prediction? Is it the target set for the future? Is it a better fund? And if we can work that out, I think that might help.
Then they're not linking together those two documents very well at the moment. So I think we need to take that away, Wayne, and have a look at how that Commissioner's point exactly.
I think it's a terminology issue. So again, I think that the fact that it's two-stage, one of them is where we think we'll end up with in a 5-year, and one will be then where do we want to be, and the end number should be where we think we'll be with the strategy we have, which ultimately is a target of such. So I think I can clarify that and how this is written going forward, definitely.
So I think one of the challenges with it is that in such a big bundle of documents, members of Public going through this, they'll skim through the headlines of it, they'll look at the direction of travel which are all projected up and stuff, policy basis. That's one thing. The second thing, it sort of struck me as I was looking through it. Back in the day, we used to call road traffic collisions road traffic accidents. They're all known as RTA. Then we changed it to road traffic collision because there was nothing accidental about it, was it? It was a defect, act or omission. Someone was driving too fast, someone wasn't looking, the brakes on. And then, so I wonder if the same analogy applies to accidental fire deaths. Is there anything really accidental about it? Is it that, is there a defect, act or omission? Because accidental implies that there wasn't too much we could do about it. Actually, there was a number of actions that contributed to that death, which we could have intervened on in a prevention programme. And maybe it's the Welsh Government's one, we've got to go along with it because it's their indicator. But I think calling things accidents can lead to a sort of...
No, it is there's a Welsh government, you're right, there's a Welsh Government circular along with guidance of what,
Yeah.
and it's aligned to the IRS
Yeah,
reporting. So
it's just a parallel that we went from accidents with cars to collisions because that's what they were.
There's no reason why we can't discuss that, and then we make a representation of Welsh Government as well, take that away and have a discussion. You can take that as an action later.
Anything else on this particular one? In that case, we'll move on then to the item 8.3, approving the strategic priority plan. Alison, is that you?
Yeah, so if I do a quick intro, just really to say, this is the legal requirements for the service. We, and a thank you really to Matthew because he has refreshed the plan for submission to this meeting. But I recognise that the work begins when commissioners sign off the plan. So it's the plan assessed at strategic level, all the supporting actions that Matthew will start to develop. And we know that we're on a journey here and we've got a lot to do. So let's I'll pause here and hand off to Matthew.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. So, and this paper has been submitted for approval to publish on the 31st of March. Essentially, I wanted to draw points of note, the learning that we've done from the previous plan to then embed into this new plan. So we've created 4 objective areas this time, changing from 3. They're now services, infrastructure, culture and people. We split up services and infrastructure largely because we feel that the service that we provide to our communities is quite different to the infrastructure to be able to provide that service. So we think there should be actions in both those areas. Each objective area has one key objective that we're looking to achieve at the end of the 3-year period, having 5 uniformed actions in each area. To build on Alison's point there, and this is the the high level strategic aims, and there's going to be a whole host of work that goes on to ensure that what does success look like? How do we ensure that happens with quarterly reporting on, well, what have we achieved in this quarter and not, etc. There'll be a strategic leader assigned to each action to ensure that we're getting the progress that we need. We've also altered the way we present our workforce demographics at the end of this plan. Previous documents had pages and pages of tables, and we've got the pie chart to improve the accessibility to ensure that all communities can successfully engage with the plan. Other than that, any questions I'm happy to take on the content within the plan, but I just wanted to assure that, as Alison says, the hard work starts on publication, ensuring that we're actually reporting on successfully. Legally, we have to report annually. We want to go by quarter and say, we haven't met our targets in Q1. How can we boost that up in Q2? And so that work will begin, and they'll have to take any questions on the content within strategy now.
So I think the report, you can see the progress here and here, so you've done a really good job getting to where it is. That's really positive. I suppose it's a wider question from this year, which is, are we really clear on the ambition of the service around our representation more broadly? And if we are, do we start to think about some harder targets or aspirations? I use the term loosely, it's 8 targets, aspirations allowed around some of these areas. I know we discussed it last year when we were in here around where we want to be, because some of these areas are struggling to shift, aren't they? And, you know, unless we're really clear with the service and it's a toxic time to do it, but it probably might be the right time to say, right, we want to be here or we want to get there. We might be still sat here in 12 months. And, you know, the plan is great because it's strategic. I think it's the next question down with ELT, etc. Of what is our aspiration for the service? Do we want to be truly representative of the communities we serve, for example?
Absolutely. So the action on that is to be more representative of the communities that we serve. That's the high level. But what does that look like? What does success look like there? You know, statistically, or the makeup of the workforce. So that's the work that we'll meet with Lisa as the SLT owner of that action. We're like, right at the start of this financial year now, what do we want to achieve by the end of the year? But also in quarter two, how are we going to bring that overarching strategic objective alive?
My step in there as well. I think it's really interesting because you go back to 2004, you look at the Vane report, and in there it said, right, by 2010, 15% of your workforce and your firefighters will all be women. So I think what we were sort of talking about is it, do we want to put a figure to it, or is it about actually the engagement that's going on out there to make true change out and about in the communities? And one of the things we've discussed, and with Alison obviously as well, is around that engagement strategy, which we have drafted previously. And unfortunately, sort of COVID took over, and then we're into a culture review. And it's about resourcing and being out there all the time. Because I think what we've done is when we do go out into the communities, they go, oh, it's you again. So it's a whole time firefighter campaign, is it? Right, we're seeing you back on the streets going into these. And we did start a really big piece of work, which we need to kind of engage and reinvigorate, going out to, as you said earlier, Paige, we need to go where the people are. Rather than trying to get them to come to us, and it's about driving that and actually educating as well. So working with some of the schools to drive that awareness that this is a career that could be for anyone.
I think Carl's points are really well made about at the moment our service is not representative of the people that we serve, and to be an excellent service. We want that as part of our network way, so that our communities look to us as a service and see themselves reflected. And if I think about some of the more diverse communities that we have at the moment, they do not see that. But I'm interested in the workforce we got now at the moment, and there still is.
Yeah, I'll sort that. I'll sort it.
Do you mind?
Yeah, I'll do it.
There's obviously
Might want to leave it a minute. You've got some time, I've got some building budget to change.
Yes. Sorry, Daisy, but
Or coming through the wall.
There we are. Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
It's right there.
It is.
I tried
The drill bit broke through.
the journalist.
Camera.
that we can't force people to give up their data, but when such a significant number of people are not disclosing whether they have a disability, or are choosing not to disclose, or don't want to talk about their ethnic origin or their sexual orientation, I think that does speak to psychological safety within an organisation. And so I'd be interested, the next kind of like the so what after that is what can we do where people feel more comfortable disclosing this information? Because at the moment, I think I would guess that some people are not talking about these issues because they perhaps feel unsafe disclosing some of this information and what that may or may not mean for their career. And, that may be completely, an unfounded concern. So I just think that's another part of this jigsaw in response to this, is what can we do to create conditions of psychological safety where more people, we're never going to get to 100%, but more people feel more comfortable disclosing this information about themselves, because they know that in doing that, their organisation will support them, and there will be no detriment, or the perception of detriment will have gone.
Okay. So just, sorry,
If it helps, I'm, you know, you asked the question, how committed is the organisation to doing this? I'm absolutely committed to it. So, for example, next week I'm trying to reach out to community. What you can't do is just dial them in an emergency. It's creating this long-term engagement. So next week I'm going to a Christian church, and we're going to go meet there, discuss with them, and I'm taking Ridian Jones and another junior firefighter, and we're going to go and engage at a church. And then I've got a mosque the following week, and then there's a whole program that's being developed for me. So at my level, to be able to go out there and say, look, I am engaging, and I'm expecting my people to engage as well. And it's that constant drumbeat of engagement that's really important there, and reassurance of who we are, why we're here. It's not a transactional thing. Exactly as you answered, Serena. Hey, we're coming out because we want to recruit some people. Well, actually, there are many motivations to engage, and okay, so there is a recruitment thing. There's also reaching out to communities. I'm going to a mosque, and I'm also going to a synagogue as well. Some of this is reassurance to those communities that in these troubled times, we've got counter-terrorism things that we need to be doing to protect some of these organisations as well. So it's much bigger than just recruitment. This is referring to recruitment and our demographics. There is something that, when I see a figure like that, Kirsty, I don't necessarily think psychological safety. Something that worries me is that rejection of DICE and things like that. And that's something that we're working very, very strongly on, because it could be rejection or it could be psychological safety. So I'm not quite too sure what to make of that particularly.
Well, I think either of those statements is problematic, whichever it is.
Yeah.
Each of those are problematic.
Absolutely.
It's just to come in on that point, there's a combination of things. We've spoken about this, haven't we, Alan? Obviously, there is a piece of work to do here, but it's about education as well, around why do we need this stuff. So we know with the quality impact assessments, once we start to educate people what we're using this for, in my experience, it generally does help. It kind of breaks down that barrier about the mistrust about why do I need to tell you that. But once actually it's clear, we should start to see those moves. But it's multifaceted. I think it's trust. I think it's education around it. And there's probably an element of systems issues in there as well. How easy is it to do this and update it? It's a new join into the organisation. It's not imminently clear. So times that across 1,800 people, I think there's an element of that in there as well. So it is on the radar. It is something that will definitely form as part of this strategy and the work that comes out of that. But I think we can make some real strides into that quite quickly.
And so is there an action coming out of here that the delivery plan will come back after you've had those discussions, Matt, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alison,
Yes.
Yeah.
in line with that, I mean, there are lots of objectives happening. I guess we're going to need to know how well we're doing, and not wait for the end of the third year to say we missed. So we need to know the period leading up to it. I think with quality, we've done a lot of things, but we've got still a lot more to do. This is a long way from sort of job being done. I think there are also some structural issues, and we talked about this. We've got recruitment in a number of different parts of the organisation for different jobs, but when it comes to firefighters, we've got two types of firefighters recruited in different parts of the organisation as well. And if we look at where most of our new joiners for the whole time come from, are they coming from the cities in Cardiff and Swansea and not Swansea, somewhere else? Newport. Yes, I know. Swansea. Yes. It's in the south. But have we put artificial structures in place that make it less likely to access these wider communities because of the route one into the full time comes from another part of the organisation? It's just, if we're really serious about doing this, we need to have as an open field as possible. Obviously, talent where we can find it, as opposed to.
Yeah, I think there's definite infrastructure barriers, and I think a lot of the time a route to being a whole-time firefighter is viewed as we'll start through with the on-call system. We don't have any on-call stations in Cardiff nor Newport, so there are certainly infrastructure barriers to ensuring that would not the easiest route in then. So I absolutely take your point that there are also take the point about recruiting in different areas of the service. So the joined up approach of talking to each other about strategies and doing that is certainly, hopefully we'll try and address that in the delivery plan that comes back here.
If you want to make success in terms of representation, you have to go quite hard at it because otherwise you won't get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's easy to rush off. It's easier to push back on. This is something that requires real. I think people need to know that we're here for the long term. It's in terms of our approach and content. But we've talked about some of the stuff at the people committee, but it's just important to get it noted at the board because more people are likely to read what is said in Board of Commissioners than they will be in people committee. Anything else? Right, Lady Wilcox.
Thank you, Vij. Yeah, just picking up on the last couple of points there. And in terms of engagement with communities, of course, you know, our 10 local authority partners have very well developed areas. You know, there's the Public Service Board, obviously, as the generic overview, but, you know, they've got plenty of experience and teams in this. So, you know, don't try and reinvent the wheel all the time. Have a look at what they're doing in terms of community engagement and in terms of equality plans and so on and so forth. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there that we could learn from and that you could use. You know, it's I know Newport has very well developed areas in this because of the diverse communities that we have in the city. So, you know, let's use our partners. Okay, you don't have to do everything alone. Thank you.
Thanks, Lady Wilcox. Okay, any other comments on this? No. Moving on then to the gender pay gap. Alison, back to you.
Yeah, so Claire's going to take you through the report, just to say overall things are moving in the right direction. However, we've just had a conversation about our gender balance, and again, we need to do more, and that will drive where we are in terms of the gender pay gap. So, yeah, do you want to take us through the details?
Right, starting on page 143, we're asking commissioners to approve the gender pay gap for March 2025. With the figures at appendix 1 to 4, which we hope to publish, but we are leaving it quite fine now by the 31st of March 26. The gender pay gap is always a snapshot of the 31st of March 25, so it's never a current document because obviously we don't have that data at this moment in time to be able to do this year's. There's a few differences between the English and Welsh gender pay gap, two of which is the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which has different recommendations to possibly England because we are drilling down more into what is needed. And also we link it to the Services Strategic Equality Plan that Matthew talked about. So obviously there are links there as well. It's not an equal pay for equal money type report. This is actually the differences between male and female employees performing the same or similar work. It focuses on the difference in average earnings between the males and females. So on page 144, 42 gives us the average mean percentage of difference between male and female employees. The figure for March 2025 is 6.81%, which shows a decrease in the gap from the 7.89 reported in March 24, as shown at Appendix 1. Appendix 1 also shows the median middle range for the female firefighter, female employee is 5.4% for March 25, which shows a decrease from the March 24 figure of 6.33. So we are heading in the right direction, but obviously it's not as quick as we would like. So basically, based on the average hourly rates, for every pound that a male employee earns in South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, a female will earn 93 pence. Appendix 2 shows the percentages of females in each quartile in relation to males. So we do have increases, one of which is slight. So the top quartile has increased from 11.7 in March 24 to 12.15 in March 25. The middle upper is 7.61% in March 24. It's increased to 8.53 in March 25. And the number of females in the lower middle has gone from 15.4 in March 24 to 16.42 in March 25. There's only a slight increase in the lower pay quartile from 34.88 to 34.97 in March 25. Interestingly, the percentage of female contractors increased from 17.31% in March 24 to 21.95 in March 25. But the increases have been focused in the first high 3 quartiles as opposed to the lower one, which is why those stats have changed. Section 4.3 and 4.4 show some of the initiatives that we're looking at to improve these statistics, which obviously Matthew is driving through. Female fire fit sessions, Welsh Women in the Fire Service events. We had the Antarctic Fire Angels, which was really good for being able to promote what we can do as an organisation and how we can encourage females to do challenges like that. International Women's Day, there is quite a bit going on with that, which is good. And we've also introduced external recruitments to all vacancies. Moving to 52 weeks full paid maternity leave to encourage people who may be a bit younger looking to come into the service, because now they know that they are being looked after. Reviewing our approach to internal placements for non-operational managerial roles to be held by those with the best skills, regardless of whether they're uniformed or not uniformed. Because obviously with our uniform cohort being a lot higher in the male sector, sometimes we don't need to have that. It's, you know, the best person for the job. Introducing agile working has been really good, because if you've got childcare issues, that does make things a lot more flexible if you need to do things with anything else that you've got going on. Menopause and menstruation procedures and toolkits, and also sanitary welfare packs on all stations applied to vehicles. So we're acknowledging that there are certain aspects of a woman's life that is different to a man's, and we're trying to help in that situation. South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, if you look at the there's a family chart of where we feature within everyone else. We're currently ranked 7th out of 10. However, I haven't been able to do, it's not good to do a comparison with last year, because at the time of writing the report, some brigades hadn't actually put their gender pay gaps out, so I had nothing to compare it to on last year's, because the brigades that were chosen last year were different. We're currently showing 7th out of 10, but given the differences on what we report on, and we look at the Future Generations Act and the strategic thing, unfortunately, you are comparing things differently, and we have a salaried organisation for on-call staff as well. So most brigades tend to do turnout salary rates attendances, so that will skew the data, because our firefighters, OCDS, are actually paid the equivalent hourly rate of a whole time. It's just how the formula then works out to work out a salary. So it may be that because we're quite unique, we're not showing the same things as all the other organisations as a result of that.
On that graph that you're referring to,
Yeah.
a lower number is a better thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we mentioned this when
Yes.
to doing something.
It's strange, because I've looked at Mid and West and North, because they've come out recently. So I've done a little report on their this year's figures, and North are pretty in line with us. They're 5.27 mean and 8.31 median, but Mid and West have come out at a 5.1 mean and a 1.6 median, which is quite low. And I don't understand. I'm going to speak to the person from Mid and West to find out, how do you calculate yours? And how have you pitched your median at 1.6? That is really low, considering we all do tend to pay the same sort of pay structure for most staff. I don't know how that's changed. So I only picked that up this week when I was doing my notes, but I will be going to Mid and West to say, how do you get your figures compared to ours?
Right.
Because if they can wave a magic wand, we'll take it.
Any comments? It's a report back over a period, but I guess if we don't have the comments today, we'll be in the same position in a year's time saying it's just a report.
Yeah.
I was just say, Claire, thank you, and the presentation, and the context was really helpful, because when you read the report, it's like your heart sinks. When you see
There's a
yourself as
lot
seventh,
of
don't you?
data.
The context piece is really, really helpful, but it does directly link back, isn't it? And it's good to see the work with that, because the only way we're going to drive this is to change some of our contractual arrangements, which we'll see how that happens. But actually, unless we've got female representation at all levels, ranks and roles in the organisation, it ain't going to shift that much, is it? And that links back into what's the aspiration in the organisation, where we want to be, really. But thank you for the presentation. Really helpful.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the, as Paul said, points for setting out why the figures might not be a true reflection, because like Carl, you think when you see them. I'm just wondering about what conversations, we're having with women about the barriers going into the service. Doing firefight is demonstrated to me that particular activity demonstrates that it's not aimed at people like me because it would put me off wanting to be a firefighter. But there were women participating in that day who are not firefighters at the moment, who absolutely loved that, which I would describe as hell. But for them, it was absolutely what they loved. They excelled at it. They were brilliant at it. And when they were talking to one another, they were saying, you should join. But there was always a reason why they didn't want to join. And I just wonder, what engagement are we having at those events? Not just to provide those opportunities for women to give things a go, and they were clearly really relishing it, enjoying it, but to use those events while the women are there to understand what are the barriers for going into service, because they were active conversations about why they wouldn't join, and they were doing lots and lots of other roles. They were clearly capable women and had a passion for it, but they weren't joining. And I just wondered, what we're doing in those events to really capture some of those barriers, to use that intelligence, that qualitative intelligence about what we want to do. Sorry,
Serena, then.
So I think this goes back again to sort of resourcing. So people quite often look at Matthew and think, well, he's going to be doing it all. He's going to be out there, he's going to be over there, he's going to be writing reports. And the reality is, doing the dancing as well. But it's about educating our staff to be able to go and have those conversations, isn't it? But also, we did, as I previously said, we did have a campaign called Together back in 2018 and 19, where we were doing a lot of this. But we had a dedicated team who has since been removed that were doing it, an engagement team for that kind of work. So we were going to places like Pretty Mudder, which is 10,000 women running through Butte Park. We were taking fire appliances to top up all their water butts and things like that to help them. And we were having loads of conversations and getting reviews and conversations there, getting referrals in for whole time campaigns, because these were women who did find getting dirty. They loved running, they were fit. And it's about analysing those places and thinking, well, where are we actually going? But again, it's about having those teams and those groups that can go out and have those conversations and do that.
But there were, I think your point, Serena, and in a constrained environment, it's difficult to get to those events. But women in firefighting, that is our event. There are staff, wandering around all day, watching and cheering people on. It's not about extra, it's just about setting up a table. And I'd be willing to sit there and just having conversations with people about what are the barriers. There's plenty of us there, there's plenty of us around, senior people around on that day supporting the event, who could be put to more use than just cheerleading, but actually sitting down and having those conversations with women who clearly already have a connection with fire, because that's why they're up there at that event. They're just doing different roles in fire. But I just think that's a good place to start, to get an understanding about what are the barriers, why people are choosing not to join. And that's as an active fire.
Matt.
Commissioner, just to offer you some insight on where we're taking this now, because you're exactly right. And what we have seen from previous Women in the Fire Service events is individuals that were corporate staff join whole time, join on call. So it's been that driver. So one of the things we're looking at now, I've discussed this with Clara Moore and Lauren Jones regarding this sort of mentor scheme. So female firefighters mentoring individuals and discussing with individuals to overcome those barriers and fears, because for me, I've always been intrigued by this. When you look at the pacing figures of recruitment of females compared to the fire service, is significantly different. I think the national standard for police now is about 49%. But when you look at the fire service nationally, it's still sitting between that 9 and 10%. So it's a significant difference. And I think there's an element where we have to accept some people don't want to do it. But when we've got those individuals that are keen to do it, is how we support them. And one of the things that Lauren is exploring, I've discussed this with ACO Reid as well, and we need to figure out the intricacies behind it. We've got staff that work here. We could be offering them opportunities to be on-call firefighters while they're in work. So again, they may not live near an on-call area, but we could offer those opportunities to almost incite individuals why we don't have a recruitment campaign. And when we come to that, and it's about supporting individuals. So there's a lot of work, because I think we have to start with our own individuals as well, that have certainly come from that fire family and are keen and are showing that interest as well.
So I should caveat, we're just talking about one aspect of the service here. So I'm just talking about active firefighters. That's not what the service is all about, is it?
No.
So I should just caveat my comments in that. I'm just talking about.
And we
that.
have seen a significant increase in the number of individuals who are taking roles in our joint fire control, from corporate staff to joint fire control as well. So that's another area of positivity.
Chief, then I've got a comment.
Just a few additional things to add. The removal of dormitories, we are nearly there. So there's only one. I think we completed all of them either within the last month or it's coming up in this month. There's just another to go.
You don't mean removal of dormitories, whole start.
It's dormitories to rooms, for the record. The fire cover review and the CRMP, inadvertent. The fire cover review and the CRMP, we are considering this very issue as well. So what do our new fire stations look like, and how do they interact with our community? So I think that's an important thing that probably wasn't considered before, certainly in a fire cover review, and I think that's something worth considering. Another thing that we've been looking at is examination of the PEEP test, and that's something I want to circle back to, because if you are perimenopausal or menopausal, then to pass the BEEP test, which is the first entry test, then you have to be a very, very high performing athlete as a woman in the in that pass rate, whereas for men it's actually easier, and I don't like that. So we're going to do some proper scientific examination. I don't know whether the science that I've been reading is actually peer reviewed yet, but that's certainly something I'm looking at. And then on the Women in the Fire Service thing, there's that practical element in which we're bringing in some of our women colleagues, supported by allies. I think that's a really important thing. So male allies, and we've got some really good people who are pushing that. But the other aspect that I was really, really pleased with, both at the national event and the Wales one that we held here, is the social aspect, and having a social event with women who get a chance to talk with each other and some of these allies as well. And I think that's really quite powerful. So the evening thing that takes place is super.
Okay, great, thank you. Claire?
Yeah, just going to say, we talk about we're agile working and we've got all the menstruation packs and we've got sanitary, all that stuff. Unless you want to work for the fire service and you hunt for that information, how much are we putting out there to that chance person who goes to the gym every week, who suddenly goes, oh, hang on a minute. That sounds quite promising now with the maternity leave and, the flexible working for me. I'd never considered fire service. Maybe I now need to look. Just little things like that, take it into the areas, that knowledge of, we've changed how we work. We have advanced. We recognise women as people who may not find the fire service in its own format, what we were looking for. And just put it out there to those who are a chance person who says, oh, I could do that.
Right, so I just want to pick up on, expand the point that Kirsty was making. We are talking about firefighters, and I think I've seen on is it London Fire Brigade, the principal fire engineer, with the head of all the inspecting officers, is a lady. And there are other routes into the uniform side of the organisation, which aren't necessarily firefighters, which could appeal to not just women, but a whole range of people who want to be part of saving lives and things, but don't want to do, aren't able or don't want to do it from a fire engine. There are different approaches, and we've talked about this and we've gone nowhere, my understanding, in terms of inspecting officers, which are the Green Book uniformed inspecting officers who you could get straight from universities with degrees in building engineering and have sitting side by side, who would act as additional. So I think it's about, a lot of people think fire brigade is just about being a firefighter. It's not, it's a whole range of careers and options.
Sorry, Chair, because I need you to move us on. Different sector, policing has done an academic review which is about to be published, I think, for the next couple of weeks around the shuttle run and fitness test more broadly. There's a different requirement for us, but it might be worth a look at that as a starting point, because I think it's slightly further on than fire and they're looking at it.
Yeah, I was only going to make the observation just to come off the back of what Matt was saying around there's quite a pattern in the sector around attracting females into the operational role, there's a lot of good work going on. But the biggest takeaway I think from studies is that equal measure needs to go into what you've done once you've recruited females.
Yeah.
It's because that is a very broken trust. We were sold this promise, and then this wasn't necessarily what it was like. So anecdotally, that's quite damaging. So I'm not saying that's the case here, but that's part of the strategy needs to be that we put equal measure into, routes to promotion and progression once you're in the service.
Yeah, nothing worse than trailblazers.
And then it doesn't work out how it was sold.
Yeah. Okay, then moving on then to page 161, the pay policy statement. Alison?
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'll ask Claire to add. So the pay policy statement is a requirement in terms of the localism bill. So we have to publish our pay policy statement by the end of March each year. It's a forward-looking document and sets out the pay policy approach for all things pay related. What you will notice in the appendices is the pay rates recorded are from 2025. So when the 2026 pay payments are finalised, we will need to update the document to reflect that data once the pay negotiations are going at the moment. There is, as well as asking commissioners to sign off this report, there is an additional ask this year, which is around the transparency relating to the services being police scheme. So I'll cover that bit off now and then I'll hand over to Claire. So the ask there is that we implement a more transparent way of linking the vehicle scheme payments for senior officials to the pay matrix of Appendix 1. Now, that will provide transparency for anyone joining the scheme. But just to flag, there will be a detrimental effect for some officers. And the ask there is that commissioners agree that we continue with the current arrangement for anyone at detriment, but on renew of the contract regarding the lease arrangements, that it's reviewed at that point. So I just wanted to flag that point. This is not about putting money into principal officers' pay pockets.
Grandfathering it out.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So there'd be a commitment there to retain that until the renewal of the contract. So that's as much as I want to say. Right? There's anything you want to add?
No, I just want to explain that two of the pay awards still haven't gone through for 25-26. And that's the craft workers pay award, which is the fleet apprentices, and the fire cadet instructors that come under the youth workers pay award. As yet, nothing has been agreed, so obviously they will be retrospective. As soon as we know those figures, we will put them through. Alison's obviously covered quite a bit of my stuff, which is brilliant. No, that's good. On page 170, the pay relatives for the lowest paid persons employed under a contract of employment within the service, based on a 37-hour week equivalent, is a minimum scale salary point of from the 1st of April 2025, because obviously we haven't had the 26 ones yet, 25583. So that is our lowest paid corporate staff member that we actually pay in the service at the moment. On page 171 of the pay policy statement, paragraph 14 mentions market supplements. So we've introduced market supplements to support recruitment and some of the challenges we've had. Finance has been a large area where we've been unable to recruit for whatever reason. So we are now looking at, for those really difficult to recruit areas, introducing a market supplement to bring them more in line with what other organisations are offering, to try and see if we can get more staff and actually retain them once they're here. Other than that, is there any questions on what we've been through?
I've got a question, comment, but it's not for myself. Well, I look at page 178, 179. You see that the levels A's and B's plotted through the organisation. And this is something that I think service has to grip at some point. You know, most of the rest of the country, in the UK, has dealt with A's and B's. This was A's and B's were a halfway house between the whole rank to roll process. They were supposed to be almost like a temporal thing. Whereas here it's become a structural thing. I think it just makes it really clunky, and it's ranks by any other name, which I think we just need to grip someone.
Firstly, Alison, thank you for the detriment clarity. I presume the individual will be spoken to
Yes.
around
Yes.
around the impacts. That's really helpful. And Claire, I may have missed it in the paper because I'm a bit of a buffoon. Real living wage. Where does that put us at that bottom pay point around?
There is a very, very small group of staff that don't hit the real living wage target, which is what we've signed up to be accredited for. And that's usually the fleet apprentices, because they're at a low level, but we've had agreement, even though they're apprentices, we will actually pay them the real living wage because that's what we've signed up to. So as an organisation, we do that. And Control have a development rate whilst the recruits are in training, and that tends to be under the real living wage rate. But other than that, everyone else we employ is above the real living wage rate.
Right. Very good, sir. Thank you. That's very helpful to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
A very quick one. I was at the NFCC council the other day, had a really interesting briefing about the pay discussions that are ongoing. They look very positive, actually. So all parties, government, the unions, and the employers are looking very positive about how that's going to go, and I think that'll give a really progressive approach for the whole sector. Actually, more to come. But and as soon as I get more information, I'll pass that out to the sixth.
Well, that's welcome news. Don't know what we heard at the start of the year, that the FU one on industrial quote that was being used. We'll see what the final outcome is on this. Yeah, that's good news.
Commissioner, I just wanted to pick up on your point as well around the A's and B's. It's something that I've picked up on as well from the organisation. I think it links into a previous point as well around attracting talent and diversity into the organisation. At the moment, I think this is potentially a barrier to that, which is something we're committed to looking at this year around trying to attract more diversity into the organisation. It won't happen if we pay lower rates than all of our surrounding services.
I agree. Right, moving on then to.
Do we need to formally agree the proposal?
Yeah, sorry.
Please.
Is there anyone disagree with adopting the proposal recommended in the report?
No.
Okay. Thanks. Right, sorry.
Agreed.
Item 9, reports from information assurance, 9.1 cops. This report, please.
That was me, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. So this is a snapshot of the top strategic risks in the organisation. The organisation does maintain a register of strategic level risks. That register is presented to the Finance and Audit Committee twice a year, so in quarter 1 and quarter 3. The last version of the whole risk register was presented to the Finance and Audit Committee this time last week. This paper has come following a conversation we've had around providing further assurance to the whole board, and for the purposes of this board, we've taken the top strategic risks to bring them to yourselves. The methodology for that for this time around was to look at the whole register, and the line was drawn, and they're all those that were high scoring, what is essentially 24 points and above when you multiply likelihood and severity. That has resulted in 11 of the risks being brought to you today for further assurance and scrutiny. It's worth noting, I think we had a conversation, one of the significant developments we've made with risk, in addition to working with risk consultants. We have a monthly strategic risk assurance forum meeting, which we had on the 18th of March, which was previous Wednesday. And we did go into significant detail there around the dynamic nature of how risk is changing. So it's important to note that this report today is the risks as of the end of quarter 3. Completely appreciate what was the large topic of discussion in the Risk Assurance Forum was obviously given the volatile geopolitical and economic landscape at the moment, that the register itself continues to be worked on and monitored, and there are some changes that have happened dynamically. It wouldn't be in this report. This obviously is a point in time. Obviously, I think the executive leadership team did provide additional assurance outside of that meeting in terms of what we were looking at in terms of the register being live. Again, it's always going to be a dynamic and live risk register. So obviously bringing whatever we bring to yourself, and obviously have a point in time due to the nature of publishing the reports. Like I said, the report follows a very similar format to that presented to the Finance and Audit Committee. Again, it's just that we've drawn a line just to bring you the top 11. What you'll find then as you go further into the appendix is every risk will have a rationale behind the scoring. It'll have an owner, and each of the owners will know why that is a risk. some of the mitigation that has been undertaken, and obviously some of the ongoing actions that they have in place to maintain to now allow us to enable that service delivery in those areas. So I'm hoping some of you will have seen the wider strategic risk register in some of the finance audit committee meetings. Again, it follows a very similar format, so I'm more than happy to put that up for questions. If that's okay.
Sorry, that's just for a bit. So Wayne, first of all, the maturity from this, from what we saw 12 months ago, is really, really tangible and really positive. So, yeah, well done to everybody who's been involved in getting it to this point, and I appreciate it still developing and growing. Also recognise, certainly for Jake, around some of the areas that there's some sensitivity around what is in here, was in there, cybersecurity being one of them, really, and the risks around that one. I know I raised it in pre-me and around safeguarding. Chief, you gave us an update around that you were over, but at the moment, that safeguarding risk grit around there, as it's way it's written in here, still wouldn't give me satisfaction if that is absolutely managed the way that we would want it to be. Of all the risks that at 11 that was presented here, we've been like you right now.
Thank you. I think I also raised at the previous meeting about the level of weight scoring. Stuff in the joint fire control seems to be, I think it's over 8. There's no mention in the mitigations of the fallback control, so that if fire control did go down, it can go somewhere else, which is a significant mitigation. And that it is about a small, starting with a small group, which could be dealt with versus, terrorism is at 24 and the starting of fire control is at 80. I just wonder about the proportionality of some of these things, and whether everyone's in the room together when people are giving their weightings, or whether sections give their weightings and it comes in. A lot of people do.
So the paper doesn't really paint the whole picture behind how you are building, looking at risk and assessing risk and balancing it. When I arrived in the service, people were sort of doing risk in isolation. Some risks weren't actually even being managed. We now have this monthly board, and it's early days still, but I was delighted the other day when we have the whole group in the room discussing a risk. So what we do is we'll discuss the big picture, and then we'll go down and look at specific risks. So you're not on your own thinking about risk and examining risk. And this is really important because risk is being matrixed, and there are certain things that depend on others. So we're going in the right direction with this. And so that very figure that you talked about is one of the ones that we've just adjusted down, I think, wasn't it? So, and terrorism, I think, went up. You'll see those in the next iteration.
I mean, and these things should be dynamic. I think we talked about in the NHS board that all the subcommittees have the risk at the top of the agenda and at the bottom of the agenda, so you know which risks that you're going to be looking at. And at the end of the meeting, you say, has this risk or this been adjusted at all, bearing in mind the work that's been done? And then it becomes a live thing as opposed to we'll see where we were at the end of the year. Okay.
I've
Right.
taken that action
Yeah.
to consider the new way.
As a sort of overview, one of my mantras is when HSE come, they will be asking you, were you being curious about risk? And it's that curiosity about risk that is really important. I think add to this the just culture discussions that we're having and introducing. We've just been in a meeting about that, for example. All of these contribute to how you're looking at risk and adjusting to it.
Liam?
Yeah, generally quickly, I think going forward, we'll try and align those meetings so that we have in that internal risk meeting, we bring in an up-to-date risk register rather than at point in time at the end of December. It just makes for a better conversation all around it.
Moving on to transformation program review 9.2, Dominic.
Yeah, thank you. So this report provides commissioners with an overview update on the Step Forward transformation programme. We are asking commissioners to scrutinise the progress across the transformation programme and recognise that there will be a new phase of transformation starting in 2026. The report paper covers the 9 programmes and the highlights and areas that we need to work through moving forward. The appendix of that covers the initial transformation aims and objectives and what we set out to achieve 2 years ago in there, so that you can monitor some of the areas against those. A further review of those will be shared with commissioners on the 13th of April with a number of the documents and follow-up pieces of evidence. Highlight areas within the report then are the Programme Management Office and this centralised importance recognised by HMRC FRS. The target operating model that we've already talked about will be key to ensuring that this is aligned with our improvement programme moving forward. And Anne-Marie, the Programme Management Officer, is going to bring a presentation and framework around the maturity model to the LT and to Heads of Service in April. The Communication and Engagement Programme has progressed significantly under the Head of Communications, Rhian Moore, and we met earlier our new Communication and Engagement Manager that will take that plan forward. This is a great example of how we took the fire standards, we've assessed them against what we need to achieve. We've built a strategy or delivery plan that aligns with that, and it feeds into our performance framework moving forward. So although there is still some work to do in this area, including our use of digital handheld devices and further access to our stations across the service, progress has been good in this area. Digital transformation has been an area of concern, and progress in this area has been really slow. To date, I'd like to welcome and thank the work of Paul Iden that has significantly improved that work under his leadership. The key tenet of our digital transformation programme is to set the foundation and a clear strategy. And again, Paul has took a similar model where he's done a robust identification against the fire standards and built a strategy that will be delivered to you hopefully shortly after I've finished talking. So I won't go into too much detail on that, but just to reiterate that there's been progress made on a lot of the underpinning systems that we've already talked today about, such as SharePoint and function services. Diversity, inclusion, cohesion and equity. I would like to thank Matthew Collins for has driven much of the work and improvement in this area, and we've already heard some of the areas and discussions today around data and diversity and areas where I won't labour those areas. ELT and the commissioners undertook our new DICE training video recently, and that's now been shared with communication and engagement, and Matt has rolled out across the service to give some clear direction on our DICE agenda. Also, our transformation manager has been working on a one team, one mission development package that was also delivered to ELT recently, and that includes a number of key areas including culture, but it also reiterates some of those areas with DICE and the trial at Barry and Ely Fire Station have given some really positive results and understanding of those key areas. Ethics, values and behaviours is an area that has been led by Station Manager Becky Newton. We've covered a number of those key areas off already, and they really map really closely to our cultural review recommendations. I'll reiterate the commitment to the core code of ethics from the commissioners and our culture statement, and a new revised culture statement for ELT will be published very shortly. We also have our first Culture Hydra training session next Monday, which will involve our senior leadership team down at the University of South Wales. We have commissioner representation from Carl on that, as well as a number of other senior leaders from across Wales, NFCC and England. This will culminate in our Beacon Awards on the 10th of April, where we'll get to recognise some of the embedded values within the service. Governance and strategy has been a key underpinning piece that we've talked about to some degree. The CRMP work has progressed significantly in the ACFO technical services, and there's a number of other associated pieces of work that now are being led rather proficiently by the Director of Corporate Services, including the new governance model that we will be moving forward to, target operating model work and a number of other areas. We've already talked about the performance framework in previous report, but also how that will link moving forward. Leadership has progressed under the Leadership and Development Academy, including a number of behavioural frameworks and leadership offers across the service. Policies and procedures, we've delivered some of this critical work in that area, so we've focused in on our HR policies and given them a thorough legal review. We've also done some assessment of operational policies and procedures. that work needs some progress moving forward. We prioritise the services has been identified for further scoping work with the support of the Deputy Chief Fire Officer. Talent management, again, there's significant work gone on into this area. We've recently, yesterday, had a presentation in our decision-making board around personal reviews and changes in progress that we'll have in that moving forward. This also links to our promotions process and our cultural review recommendations, and we've made some commitments to deliver some of those by the 1st of April. Progress is being made. Deputy Head of People Services in liaison with trade unions to move that forward in preparation for our watch managers processes. We've also had recent briefs on our progress towards independent professional standards, units, and some of the key areas that's helped support us moving forward. Those are the overarching progress and areas that we need to focus on for the culture review recommendations. Wrong for the transformation programme, but this will map very closely to the next page of the cultural review recommendations as we come off those areas. The next stages of that is we have a assurance meeting this afternoon bi-weekly. The second one of those will be attended by the Deputy Fire Officer, so you can monitor progress within them, and we will provide you with a full review of the transformation programme, cultural review recommendations, some overview of the products that we've made and done to support this. And so an overview of the news for the last 2 years, sharing on the So those are the highlights from the transformation programme, the key areas that we will focus on moving forward. Hopefully you can recognise those from the discussions we've had today, and the priorities that the Chief Fire Officer has already stipulated. That is from myself, I'm looking at those notes progress. Questions?
Okay, great. On the chair of the committee.
Yeah, no, very, Don summed it up really well. You know, it's by no means, Adam, is it job done? It is still job in progress with a lot of stuff delivered or in train. So thanks to Don for the work that's gone. It's a good summary about where we are at the moment. It's a real good plan for them. And it's now that kind of leadership going forward, isn't it? Really to drive the transformation that the Don does make one.
Okay, noted. Lady Wilcox.
Chair, thank you. And thanks to Don for that summary of so much work that's gone in. It makes me think when we look at the Safe and Positive Environment Plan, you know, picking up on Kirsty's points in the earlier discussion about fostering psychological safety and, you know, ensuring that encouraging all to speak up and be supported and be heard. You know, so that is a really important aspect to ensure that we get more engagement with previous policies. And I may well have overlooked this. So my apologies in advance, but how does this now fit with the strategic equality plan that we approved earlier in the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take that first, and then I'll offer it open to the room. The strategic equality plan, similar to a lot of the other plans and strategies that we brought in, should all link from the strategy that the Chief talked about earlier, and it should be mapped into the performance framework. So a lot of these plans, all of these plans have clear aims, objectives, goals, and KPIs that those areas through and then support these areas. So the transformation programme and the 9 key areas within that was designed to be a kind of foundational element to get us stable to then be able to move these things forward to the relevant owners of those. So the strategic equality plan that will build on the work that Matthew and Alison and the team have done within those key programmes, the programme and the Safe and Positive programme, to make sure that they move forward. That makes sense.
Okay, Chief.
I just like to add something to this, which is not really on the subject of the particular paper, but just to extend a thank you to Don. This is the last Board of Commissioners that he'll be in, and Don has been there delivering transformation in an organisation, which is a particularly difficult role to have, and the determination that you've shown, and your relentless attempts to make sure that we're getting things embedded into the organisation really well. I'd like to thank you very much for that, Don. And Don is going off to do something quite exciting. I don't know if we're allowed to publicly announce that. But he has an exciting opportunity to go to, which I think doing this job has helped you to secure that role as well, which I think is really interesting. So best wishes for the future.
Right. Moving on then. Policy review recommendations.
Yep, thank you. So I won't labour the point on this because I've touched most of these areas in detail. Our cultural review recommendations, the progress is highlighted within the report. Now, 69 of those recommendations complete and quality assured by commissioners. One of those is about to sign up to 12 recommendations remaining outstanding, all of which are annually reviewed. The appendix to this gives you really clear direction on what commissioners' expectations are to achieve those recommendations. It also provides a highlight to where we were in terms of our progress. There's clear deliverable dates and there are strategic and heads of service owners on those so that you will be able to have accountability of the sign up of those recommendations moving forward. As we've already mentioned, those that are due to sign off on the 1st of April coming to the commissioners on the next evidence review, which is the 10th of April, so that you can quality assure the evidence and sign those off or not. And then the rest of those recommendations will fall onto the relevant leads to assess and progress by the relevant due dates. The paper includes a number of highlights that help to address the significant most impactful. We've talked about those pretty much in their entirety, including the Beacon Awards Reward and Recognition, 30th anniversary, and the promotion process. There's a few other key updates that we've put in there, including one theme, mission, work, leadership, connect, areas. So this report is for the commissioners to note the position of the cultural review recommendations and take assurance that there is continued oversight on their completion for signing.
You're asking us to agree the additional evidence gathering. Yeah. Anyone disagree with that? Can you take questions? Other questions? Come on.
No, we had a very strong discussion, Kirsty. Chief was present as well, street transformation. There's obviously 4 areas that need a specific focus on. The chief supported that to get us over the line by April of this year. The others then are long term.
Okay, right. Moving on then, staff survey outcomes. Alison? No? No? I'm sorry, right.
So this paper is on the staff survey. It gives commissioners an overview of our 2025 annual staff survey and the findings of that. We are asking commissioners to scrutinise the annual survey results and the actions that we've already taken in response to the survey and approve post scheduling for future staff survey to ensure that we continue to monitor these key areas, including service culture, colleague experience and improvement progress. I'd like to start by thanking Group Manager Stuart Townsend that led on this piece of work. He took a significant amount of background work to look at staff surveys, both in fire and rescue services and in the public sector, as well as making sure that we've mapped this staff survey questions to previous surveys, so HMRC, FRS, our independent cultural review, investors in people, so that we can continue to track our progress and improvement around that work. He's also worked extensively with senior leaders to talk through those areas and has made bespoke reports for certain functions and areas so that they can understand their areas in a little bit more detail. So the staff survey report comes with the appendix, which is the detailed report that we've shared with all of our staff. It means that there is independence and anonymisation, so that people can't be identified within the survey, which is one of our staff's main concerns. That it gives overviews of our key areas of improvement and our key areas that we still need to focus and improve on, and we've mapped some of these into the transformation reports that we will receive later next month to show some of the areas and progress. I'm going to pull out a few highlights that map directly to the cultural review recommendation that we previously talked about. So 100% of respondents to the survey said that they understood the values, and we provided some of those with additional prompting around those areas. The response rate in general was really high. We've seen improvement in our managers modelling the values all the way up to senior leadership team, 14.1% improvement in senior leaders modelling the values or staff respondents feeling that they do. There's still some work to do in that area, but it was one of the most improved areas that we saw. Service also had significant improvement in the way that change was managed and how people felt they were up to date or kept up to date on the way change was managed. Again, those areas and still benefit from significant improvement, but it's moving in the right direction. The report itself has a number of thematic responses, including comments and summaries that give you an in-depth understanding about how staff feel those key areas. We've been really careful with how we've done that thematic review so that we didn't identify any staff within those comments. And it gives you a clear outline at the end for the ownership of the staff survey and the timeline that we would need to take to move this forward for the next year. So we are welcoming Commissioner's comment and review on the staff survey findings, and to note the ownership and recommendations for timelines for the next staff survey.
So on the one where we've got the management averages, we've got supervisory averages are quite important in the organisation. They see that I'm reading this, the communications, organisation change. I've read. It's quite, we want our supervisories really at the first point of contact. We've been able to sort of feel like the community. Is it that they don't feel it's the organisation communicating to them, or the communication?
So that it's the director average page we're looking at, and the one before. So those results are taken as an average from all the questions in that section. So if you go to the communications number change management section, you can see how those questions are broken down, which gives you a bit more detail on exactly what they are feeling around that. Now, I think we recognise that area, and that is some of the reasons why we put in place with One Mission a set of workshops which are supervisory watch manager led, that enables them to get those face-to-face conversations, and it will feed directly out of the Leadership Connect that we've targeted our middle leaders on. Some of the communications that we talked about earlier, such as access to personal devices, will help support those key areas. So I think we recognise that we are asking supervisory managers to support and deliver some of our change messaging, and we need to give them the information to be able to do that.
Any other comments you want to make?
I just good to see the. I thought the response rate was really good. You just gave what your organisation you called from, but I actually thought the response rate was pretty healthy actually. So that was really positive, and it is good to see the progress being made, and that's great. But it's also, isn't it, what you do with behind them, all the comments and the stuff that sits behind it really, and the balance out of, I suppose, looking at you really, of how you balance what you can focus on and what you can't focus on really, on some of those individual comments and individual areas. And finally, I just thought the interesting between the different areas of business, there's quite some stark differences around those, and we can obviously something to for the service to dig into more really around why people think very, very different depending on what function you're in really.
Yeah, I think there's a big part as well about being part of the solution from the people that about trying to create an environment where that is felt more. So it's not kind of like we've said this, what's going to happen as a result of that? Let's see what happens next year and almost mark us on that. It's rather than, well, where are these? We need to involve them in the design of the solutions more. So when, whether things do work quickly or not, it's kind of like, well, how could we improve that? And I think there's a piece to do there, definitely.
Right, thanks much for that. Moving on then to.
Sorry. Do we need to agree?
Yeah,
on
sorry,
time?
yeah, there's a thing in the one second. Anyone disagree with the timelines?
No, really so.
Right. Right, on 9.5, fire and rescue services, national framework and variation of combinations.
That's me, yeah, thank you. Yes, it creates up the tongue, doesn't it? So this paper is on the new fire and rescue services order, which was made on the 4th of March, but actually comes into effect on the 30th of March. And it took us a bit by surprise, actually, because I'd originally written a paper just telling you about the new fire and rescue national framework. And then the order dealt with two things. I wasn't expecting it to cover both, but anyway, so I fortunately was in time to amend this paper. So I'm basically asking you to note both the new framework, well, the order itself, the new framework, and the new structure for the new fund. So I wasn't going to spend too much time on this, but if I go over to page 316, you'll see that at the appendix is the order itself, which has been passed. We haven't included the framework because quite a long document. You have quite a few documents already. It has been circulated to you separately, and there was a link in the paper. So rather than fill the papers with that unnecessarily. What does the framework mean for the service? Well, we got advance notice of it on the 3rd of March, and we knew it was coming because we were consulted on the first draft. It sets out the priorities and objectives for fire and rescue services in Wales over the coming years, and the wording in section 21(7) of the 2004 Act is that we, in the inverted commas, must have regard to the framework. But also, if we fail to act in accordance with it and don't give you a sufficient explanation and reasoning as to why, then it does allow Welsh ministers to exercise their intervention powers, which is obviously what's happening at the moment. So I haven't gone across the service for a response to this because I know we're all working, we've been aware of it for a long time, been working on it. So I've just set out a summary of the headings, which is at paragraph 4.3. And then I think very helpfully at section 4.4, the new framework includes a little red box in each section. I love the simplicity of that. This is what very clearly the expectations are. I'm a simple person, I quite like that. So that was really helpful. And then at paragraph 4.5, I've just set out, this is Amanda's view, a few examples of where we're already ahead of the curve. So I've mentioned the operational bulletin on fatigue management, the fact that we've got a fire cover review and process to work towards the CRMP, that we will be publishing that CRMP later this year for consultation, and that we're very much ahead of the curve in terms of the decontamination agenda and what we're doing to screening and so on for that. So that was just a sample list. If there are any other matters you want more detail on the chief and others around this stuff, I'm sure. So then turning to page 318, if we then turn to the fire authority aspects, we knew that these changes were coming, but they've been confirmed. So the fire authority must now consist of 15 members. 10 of them will be appointed by the unitary authorities. 5 will be additional members. Sorry, I didn't put that wording in. That's the new language. They're going to be appointed by the Welsh ministers. And the members must come from the executive part of the council, the cabinet. So that's a change. And that we must consult more clearly in relation to our budget setting process, which Liam is aware of as well. So those changes, again, we've expected them, we knew they were coming, and I have commissioned the strategic governance review. The consultant, the 2 lead professors at Cardiff are doing a briefing to commissioners later today, and there will be a paper coming to you at the 22nd of May, commissioner. So don't you need any more information?
It's just, I think you've got to accept anything.
Oh, am I on a different page to you? I'm so sorry. I've got the pre-meet paper.
Yeah, that's right.
I told them to save paper.
Yeah.
I didn't want to destroy a forest.
I've already made all your notes.
So I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was just
I've thrown
Paginated again, didn't they? Because there was a jump in the pagination.
Yeah, so that's entirely my fault. I was going to save paper and I've got the paper.
No, you're fine. And with these two are for votes, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah, I have one question. I'm probably directing it to Matt actually around the framework. Now, I appreciate the fire advisor's not available at the moment, but I suppose there's going to have to be an engagement with the fire advisor around how they're going to, or do they intend to inspect against the framework, don't they?
Yeah, I've had a brief conversation with the fire advisor around what that plan is, and I believe he's set up a team which is aiming to be implemented in January 2027, as well with the potential of that and elements of the framework will be assessed against that.
Right, okay, I suppose the clarity of what that inspection framework would look like would be really helpful for that service, which one would expect.
Meeting last week, Commissioner, and it came up in conversation.
Thank you. Well, if we can help influence that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Line 6, Wealth Government inspection of South and West Side of the
Chair, that paper's already been presented formally to the Strategic Plan Transformation and Culture Committee on the 27th of February. So rather than repeat that report here, you've got a link to that report. If you have any questions, happy to take them, but I think Matt dealt with the sort of the follow-on actions of that.
Yes, okay.
And I think in due course, we will be sending a formal response to the inspector.
Formal response has gone to the inspector.
Okay.
That's our position statement, and we're grateful of that response, because I believe he's responded to or responding back to Welsh Government on the progress, but he understood the challenges that we're facing as a service right now, but can see the progress we could make once further papers are agreed.
Okay.
It would be really helpful to see what the service is sent back to the fire advisor, so just outside of this meeting, just to know what's going on.
Now that reply, because we've got so much ongoing work, it's a very short statement. So yeah, we'll pass that to you.
Okay.
Okay. Line 7, 100 meetings.
Chair, yes, another paper from me. It's just really, we need to plan now for the 26-27 municipal year. So it's a paper that you would get every year, which sets out an outline plan for meeting date. So I won't tell you the page number, but at section 4 of my report, it says we must plan. I've made assumptions that because we're only going to have 15 members, it's a more streamlined fire authority. So I've assumed a fire authority and 2 committee structure. I don't know if that's what we're going to get, but I'm hedging my bets. And I've set some dates with that in mind. I have checked with my team. Can't take personal credit for this. My team have checked with the Yorkshire authorities, and the only date that seems to work for these meetings is on a Monday. So there will be a shift from a Friday meeting to a Monday meeting. I have discussed this with Lady Wilcox because I understand that's very difficult during that transition period. It is very hard to please everybody, but I've got to go with something. And what I've also fixed already is a new member induction for the 29th of June, and our AGM will take place on the 6th of July. So both of those days are a Monday. And we will have the usual stand down in August. And it's not in the papers, but we have discussed the end of this municipal year. We're going to have the extraordinary Board of Commissioners meeting on 26th of May to mop up a lot of things. And we also discussed, I think, at the pre-meet, do we need to think about a September fire authority meeting? It's a long gap between those 2 meetings, and that's a key time following consultation and after the CRMP. So I recognise that date isn't in here, but it may well be something we add to the calendar to accommodate that. So, and the dates are set out in attendance. Happy to take any questions.
No questions?
It's just a personal view. I would put September 1 in with a view to cancel.
Yeah.
Not having it in, and then we're trying to change.
Yeah.
And say for us, it probably isn't going to be, but at least you're aligned with people, and hopefully the 15 are available for that one.
Yeah. So we'll do.
But that would be a personal view. I don't think the commission's got a different thing.
Yeah, we can always take things out. It's hard to put in if you run, it's not to run short time. The recommendation is that we approve the current meeting schedule as appendix 1. Anyone disagree with that? Right, moving on then, we're going to take this report in 2 stages. Do that all over to you, first part, and then we'll take the exemption for the appendix.
And the only thing you might want to do, Chair, before you go into exempt is ask for any other urgent business before because then we turn the cameras off.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, this report presents the DDAT 2026-31 and the accompanying delivery framework. So with your permission, I'd just like to just briefly set out a bit of context before summarising the key points. So basically, what does the DDAT department do at the moment? We're responsible for all digital data technology across the service. We support the networks, systems, cybersecurity, and we maintain our mission critical systems on a 24/7 basis. And that's everything from end-to-end station network connectivity, resilient turnout and control. And we also support our business critical systems such as finance and HR. So currently, what our business as usual looks like, we just, like I just said, we support all of our digital services and we support about 1,800 users across multiple systems. But at the moment, there is no dedicated digital transformation capacity. So our business as usual absorbs the full 32 members of our team. So at the moment, how does innovation happen? It largely doesn't. It's our improvements at the moment are more reactive when systems fall or contracts expire. So we will then add innovation in from any procurements and new procurements. We've got no formal innovation pipelines, no data platforms to really build on. Everything's siloed at the moment. The strategy seeks, or the plan seeks this to change this. So the report in front of you is the DDAT plan. What I propose is 3 interdependent goals. And goal number 1 is to provide a resilient infrastructure that's providing a full digital backbone. So that's improving our servers, our networking, and improving our cyber resilience. Goal 2 is more of an integrated data, so we reduce the siloed systems. We present a data fabric, and any new procurements, any new systems to go in will have open APIs, programming interfaces. It will be a requirement that they must be able to link to our systems. That will then allow us to sort of unlock some of the CRMP improvements, that we were discussing earlier on. And then goal number 3 is improving our workforce capability. So that's improving our digital skills within DDAT, and more importantly, across the organisation as well. And that's also unlocking citizen developers, so bringing in some expertise that are across the service. There's a number of firefighters, there's a number of staff across the organisation who want to improve the service, and why not use those skill sets, develop our in-house development capabilities, and just improve it really. And this strategy then the strategy then will then include some sets of governance. So I propose that we set up a DDAT governance board. We link in closely with the PMO, and we also introduce what I like to call maybe a digital demand gateway. So any new systems that are proposed, from any new sort of digital processes, even down to Excel sheets, that they need to go through some sort of governance, so that we can then see across the organisation where we're maybe duplicating system asks, and could we then reutilise some of our own systems, existing systems, or join up procurements. So then we're reducing the siloed systems down. As part of that as well, as part of the strategy, I'm also suggesting a staged approach to our improvements to our digital transformation. So for this year, I would be asking for some finance to be able to move our digital transformation efforts. But then we will then, before coming back to ask for an additional pot of money in the second year, we would be reviewed and make sure that we have said that what we would do. What I don't want to do is ask for a blank check for digital transformation. So what's the risk of doing nothing? Our systems remain isolated. There's no progress on any data analytics. And we are still dependent on our vendors. So we continue to only innovate when they say that we innovate, you know, when there's replacements and contracts expire. So in closing, Chair, the service faces unavoidable investment in its core services. But my recommendation really to the board is to use this moment to build the foundations so that that will serve this organisation for the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. I just want to say before it's very open, thank you very much for the honesty with which you've spoken in highlighting issues. I mean, it's really important to have that sort of candour at this level in the organisation, so we're properly citing on what the reality of the issues are. And also, well done to you for putting this out, because the last time we had a presentation about 6 months ago was a real, I can't tell you how different this is to that. I mean, a number of us were shocked by the presentation we had before in how inadequate it was. And to see something like this put together, that's really good. And I'm quite struck by your thing in the gates process that you're actually asking almost to be performance managed, aren't you?
Yes, I think we need that because
very good,
especially now with the funding.
Yeah,
yeah,
great. Thank you for offering yourself up like that.
Okay.
Kirsten?
Yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you, Paul, for the honesty and the candour that is contained in the document. It's not great reading, is it? But, you know, second best time to plant a tree is today. So there's no point looking back where we are. It is about what your paper does. It gives a very clear way forward in which we could tackle where we are and what we need to do about it. Obviously, the financial considerations are considerable. But I really appreciate that we've got kind of like a baseline really from which we can build, which I don't think as commissioners we've seen before. So although it is quite hard to read about the level of investment that we're going to have to make because that investment hasn't been made previously, I think this is the basis on which we can build. And I just want to thank you for the work that you've done in getting us to this stage. And the approach that you take. It's a step change from what we've had before.
Yeah, thank you. Just to reassure you, I think we might go on to this afterwards, but some of the reductions in the services that we consume will pay back some of the announcements.
It's kind of like investing to save.
Yes, yeah.
Today. But yeah, I think this is really comprehensive.
Just reiterate, proper excited, Paul. You know, when I look back a couple of years to when we first started, we knew this was an area that needed investment, we knew it wasn't right. Pretty much everybody in the room here has said it's not right. I think this is a template to move forward. That's really positive. Yes, the investment is challenging, less the amount of work is going to be challenging, but it is absolutely the right thing to do. And I think locally the government is really excited about the future. And I personally would like to see what it achieves because some great opportunity to unlock talent and capacity across the organisation.
I know you talked later about being able to extract savings and costs. Organisations are pretty good at projecting they're going to extract savings and costs. And when it comes to the extracting that savings, it's like we can't find them or they've been somehow. It's just but anyway, thank you for that. Any comments, observations?
I just want to echo what fellow commissioners have said and to thank you, Paul, for this very detailed and it is an investor save report. But, you know, I just want your assurance that this really is the start of the change because we're at least a decade out of date against our local authority partners. So will you give me that assurance that we're really on the road to making this right now, please?
Yes, I can categorically give you assurance that we are moving forward with our digital transformation. Commissioner.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that was minuted as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm confident. Yeah, and I think it's not just me. across the service, everyone wants to unlock sort of,
Yeah.
turn over some stones, look at our processes and, enable just efficient working. Really, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. In terms of process now, let's consider item 10 before we then go on to the pink paper. Is there anything urgent business that wants to be brought to the committee? Have you been notified of anything? What the item taken? No, okay, then we move.
You just need to read
I need to read this out. And we move into the second part of the DDAP paper. And then you just need to read this out for the purpose. This appendix is exempt information on the federal 12A of the local government Act 1972, as it contains information in relation to the financial or business affairs of any particular person that currently contains information in connection with the development plan paragraph 7. The public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information.
You have to ask the commission.
Yeah, and we support it.
Support.
Great. Wilcox, okay with that? Great. So that we then need to stop the recording. So now, and is it?
Recording stopped.
Anybody who doesn't need to be in the room